Hey guys, what is up? Mailand here, welcome back to my channel. Today I will present you my top tier 8 premium tanks. Lots of people have been asking me about it on streams or in-game, so I finally decided to make a video about it. The tanks that I will be presenting here have the right balance between fun to play, credit making potential and influence on the battlefield. I refer to random battles. The list would look different if I would be talking about tier 8 strongholds. Please keep in mind that this is just my personal opinion on those tanks and you might disagree, which is absolutely fine. Also note that most of the tanks shown here have a very high skill cap, meaning that they will perform really well in the hands of an experienced player, but way worse when played by a beginner. There are some tanks that came very close to making it on the list. I will mention them in the end. So let's get started. Here are my top 5 tier 8 premiums in World of Tanks. Number 5, the German Panther 88. This tank actually has been in the game for quite a long time already, but has never gained a proper reputation yet. I don't really know why. I only see very few of them on the battlefields actually. I personally love the 88 because of its typical German gun. Like the pen of 203mm with standard AAP and 237 with APCR is pretty average, I would say, in tier 8, but the gun, it really shines when it comes to accuracy and DPM. With a proper crew, consumables and equipment, you can get the base accuracy of 0.32 down to 0.28, which is pretty outstanding at tier 8. Also, the stock rate of fire of 8.7 rounds per minute can be boosted up to 11, resulting in a DPM of 2640, which is, I believe, pretty much top amongst tier 8 mediums. That allows you, for example, to perma-track heavies pretty effectively around corners. You end up with a reload about 5.5 seconds. Despite the quite long base aim time of 2.4 seconds, it has crazy good gun handling. Maybe that's because of the tank's mediocre maneuverability, but that really enables the tank to do lots of quick snapshots and precise hits on range. In addition to that, it gets 8 degrees of gun depression all around the tank. They changed it with the latest D50 patch, which makes it really comfortable to play, especially in hilly terrains. You don't need to worry about small bumps and stuff. Another advantage of the 88 are its 1500 hit points, which is equal to an IS-3. So you can, in some situations, even trade shots with heavies, because you know you will fire twice in the time that they shoot once. What I dislike about the 88 is the relatively weak ammo rack, meaning that you will end up with the damaged ammo rack quite a lot, which can be very frustrating and annoying, and sometimes you even get blown up by some high caliber guns. Yeah, and another thing is the low top speed at 46 kph and the mediocre maneuverability. The horsepower per ton ratio is not that bad, but it just gets fucked by ground resistance. So the equipment I'm running on this are standard medium equipment, footsteps, rammer and optics, but of course if you want to go full Suka Bliazda, you switch out those optics for vents for maximum DPM. So if you're looking for a competent tier 8 medium that shits credits and trains your German medium crew and happen to be a DPM junkie like me, then this might be exactly the tank for you. Number 4. Defender/Object 252U. Those tanks are probably the most forgiving tier 8 premium heavies after, say, the IS-6. You have a gun with ridiculous 440 alpha, which is quite unique amongst tier 8 heavies. And combined with 225 pen on its standard AP rounds and 265 pen on its APCR rounds, make it a really powerful damage dealer. But the gun is not the only outstanding thing on the tank. You also get the typical Russian heavy tank armor. The space side armor is not as prominent as, for example, on the IS-7 or the IS-3, but 100mm of side armor make it still great at side scraping. Paired with an insanely angled 130mm thick upper plate and 250mm turret front, make this an ultimate powerhouse at tier 8. The lower plate is 140mm thick and insanely sloped, which still gives you armor of around 225mm effective. Limitations of the tank are its relatively mediocre mobility and low top speed of 35 kph, but you gotta keep in mind it needs to carry all the armor around, right? Also, the top of the turret can be panned pretty easily like on the i6, and that can get quite annoying when playing on short range, when side scraping or playing cooldown for example. Also, on range, the gun won't work that well with 3.1 second aim time and 0.42 accuracy, but you know, sometimes Stalin reaches out of the grave and guides your shells. Kappa. I like the tank because you can play ultra aggressively in it. 440 alpha allows you to trade really effectively, and with 265 APCR pen you can still rape even tier 10 vehicles. Also, lots of people haven't learned yet and still shoot the upper plate. I sometimes still do that, which is impenetrable when straight on. Armor values there range from 320 all the way up to ridiculous 420mm effective. Like, just what the fuck. I will not say that this tank is OP because of its quite limited capabilities on open maps, low DPM and relatively long aim time. I think all in all it was just a bit overhyped before its introduction to the game, but nonetheless still a very good tier 8 heavy that will rape anything with low penetration and can still be very effective in tier 10 battles. On top of that, I can train cruise in it for my countless Russian heavies. Recommended equipment for that is definitely rammer and vert steps, and then you take either gunling drive, optics or vents, whatever floats your boat. And don't wonder, I'm not that rich, I didn't buy both these tanks, I got this gifted, so at this point a quick shout out to these guys. Bronze medal goes to the Scorpion G. This tank is probably the one that gives the least fucks about the shitty tier 8 matchmaking, really. You have a gun with 490 alpha and 246 standard AP pen and 311, yes 311 APCR pen, meaning that you will pen pretty much any tank that you will ever face. Also because it doesn't really have any armor, it doesn't really matter what shoots back at you because you'll get penned anyway in return. The tank works really well in close range as on distance. 2 seconds aim time will sometimes really let you pull off the most ridiculous snapshots ever, and with 0.29 accuracy you can deal damage effectively also on long range. But hearing all that, like, you would not think that's anything special, right? You can just play a Borsig. Not quite. The Scorpion also goes 60 kph forward and 20 backwards, allowing it to reach advantageous positions really quickly and change flanks easily if ineffective. So you can, for example, do first shots on lights and mediums when they are trying to get into position. With a horsepower to ton ratio of 17, yes 17, it has medium-like mobility, just a relatively low tractor verse slow it down a bit. I personally love the Scorpion because of exactly that flexibility. You can do early damage, like on lights, mediums, early opening damage, and depending on the situation you can just switch flanks. It doesn't really take you long to, for example, rotate from one flank to another or just rotate through the entire map because of 60 kph top speed. You're done really quick. And because of 490 alpha you can even trade effectively at tier 8 and of course against lower tanks. Also, it doesn't require you to do much in order to earn shit ton of credits. Like, you pen 6 shots with 490 alpha and you will end up with over 2.5k damage, which will in most cases net you around 100k credits. Equipment that I run on my Scorpion are rammer, gunling drive and binos. I don't recommend putting optics on it since you will not reach full view range with it, but of course you can always go full QB and also slam a cabinet on it. Second on the list, the AMX CDC. This tank is pretty much all about its mobility. Top speed forward of 57 might be nothing special, but mounting a 1200 horsepower engine in a 34 ton tank, that is simply amazing. Meaning that you end up with an incredible horsepower to ton ratio of 35.5, which means that you go faster than 50 kph pretty much all of the time, regardless of the terrain profile. And pair that with a track traverse speed of 30 degrees per second and you will end up with a light tank in the shape of a medium tank. Because of that, you can sometimes use it as a scout and also outplay enemies quite easily in close range. But it doesn't end here. The CDC has to offer more. Its gun has 212 standard AP pen, which is way above average on tier 8 mediums. The base aim time of 2.1 seconds compensates for its relatively mediocre gun handling, but you gotta keep in mind that you're traveling at very high speeds most of the time, so the relatively big aim circle I think is justified. 10 degrees of gun depression make this thing really effective when fighting ridgelines, and the fact that the gun sits all the way on top of the turret makes it a really small target when picking over ridgelines. Wide open maps with hilly terrain like Malinovka, Prokhorovka, Murovanka, you name it, they're probably the best maps for this tank. You can easily switch positions regarding to what your team does. You can switch positions to always keep the gun singing and to even provide spots for your team. You will see me snapshotting quite a lot with this tank, just to lower the risk of getting shot in return, or simply because the gun handling isn't that bad after all. In general, for me the CDC just offers the best balance between firepower and mobility, which I just simply love. It has probably the highest skill cap, meaning that it requires a very experienced player to do well in it. Having over 450 battles played in it, I'm averaging 2650 damage easily, without even needing to try hard. The CDC has been my favorite tank for quite a long time, until they introduced the Gorilla 15. I run a standard medium tank setup on it, including rammer, vert steps and optics, but I've also seen people going full Suka Bliat and swapping out those optics for Vans or gunling drive if you like to shit on view range. And finally, my top tier 8 premium tank. Yes, it's French, but it's not really a true Frenchie in any way. It doesn't really excel at running, kappa, and it's not even built on a French chassis. It's neither particularly good nor particularly bad at anything. It's pretty much a Joe average, with a hipster level of over 9000. Yes, it's the M4 Revolver or Ravioli, whatever you want to call it. Looking at the tank, I mean, it's a tier 5 M4 Sherman's chassis with a giant 105mm gun mounted on it. And yes, that thing is a beast. It fires APCR standard ammo with decent pen of 200 and 390 damage. The alpha is just insane on the tier 8 medium with about 10 seconds reload. The default aim time of 2.3 seconds is, I would say, average. But with the slow speed of the M4, you are always pretty accurate on the move and can quickly pull off your shots. APCR makes playing the tank on long range really comfortable, and with 390 alpha you can like easily trade in close range with mediums, for example, if you need it. 10 degrees of gun depression also make this tank an excellent ridgeline warrior. You can quickly peek, snap and then pop back into cover. Apart from the gun, there's nothing really special about this tank. I mean, it's pretty big, has pretty much no armor and only goes 40. I would also say that the base DPM of 1830 is nothing to really brag about. But for some reason, I don't know, the tank just feels right. In randoms you slap people left and right and make a shot here and a shot there, and you quickly end up with over 3k damage, which pretty much equals 100k credits in most cases. One thing though is that you gotta be really careful with this tank because it's kind of fragile, like a true baguette. You often lose your engine and the tank also suffers a lot of ammo rack damage and burns a lot. I actually ended up using rations, fire extinguisher and a repair kit. I can compensate for that crew with the jack of all trades skill. Well, equipment wise, nothing really to say there. Standard medium tank equipment. Put the rammer, vert steps and optics on it. Again, if you think that additional bit of DPM is worth it, then you of course swap out the optics for Vans. So, if you're looking for a French medium crew trainer that takes some skill to the well-in and you want to feel like a real hipster, then I think this is exactly the tank for you.